Okay, and we'll get started. Welcome everybody. My name's Sarah. I'm educational psychologist at Southend Borough Council, and we're here this afternoon to just give you a brief overview into video interactive guidance and how we can use it as educational psychologists. And I'd like to welcome Stephanie, who's joining us as well.
Hi, I'm an educational psychologist too. I specialize in psychology, and like Sarah, I'm a video interaction guidance practitioner.
Great. So we've got some few slides to show you and a video, and what we're going to do is just discuss together as we go along what VIG is, how we use it, and sort of the key principles that really underpin VIG and how we use it. So what we're going to do is, as with lots of the webinars, if you've got any questions and you want to put them in the Q&A box as we go along, and we'll check in and certainly answer questions at the end as well. And also that we might do a couple of activities and ask you to put some thoughts into the chat as well. So Sophie, you want to put the
share my screen
up?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, stick it in present mode. All good? Can you see it all?
Yeah, lovely.
Excellent. So what video interaction guidance is, and I don't know how much experience people have and knowledge of it, but it's as in the name, it's a video-based intervention that's rooted in positive psychology, and the aim is to enhance communication and enhance attachment. It's long thought, and I think one of the narratives around it is it's a mother-baby intervention. And what Sarah and I are hoping to show you today, actually, it's intervention that helps to promote communication in any relationship. So I'd start just to give you a grounding with a brief overview of the process of video interaction guidance. And this is from a video from Kent Local Authority. They very kindly put a fantastic video together. And I know Nicole's going to share the link with you. It's also available on the VIG website. And basically what happens is the VIG practitioner goes and videos a play session, or actually any session. I've done things from meal times to doing homework together, just videoing something that the parent and child are doing together. We don't tend to use those video cameras anymore. It tends to be iPads or iPhones or some form of tablet in today's world, which actually makes video editing and playback a lot easier. Then what happens is the VIG practitioner takes the video away, so they don't leave it with the family, and they pick out 2 or 3 moments of what we called an attuned interaction. And I'll come to the attunement principles in a minute, but basically it's a interaction where there is some form of communication, but they're communicating in what we call the yes cycle. The aim is to help parents see what they're doing, or to help teachers see, or TAs, what they're doing to bring about this interaction. Then together with the parent or the teacher or the TA, we have a shared review where we microanalyze. And what we mean by a microanalyze is the clips are very short. They're roughly between 5 to 10 seconds, sometimes a little bit longer, or sometimes they're literally just a still. And you can spend 20, 30 minutes talking about just that picture, because you really go into great depth of what were the micro moments of that interaction that helped to make it a successful one, a positive one. The typical is that you do this three times. However, that's not set in stone. With some families, I've done it less. In some situations, I've done it more. And I'm sure Sarah will agree, it's not there's no prescribed, and that's one of the beauties of VIG. It's not prescribed, it's not manualized. You're taught the skills, you're taught the principles, you're embodied with the values and beliefs, and then you make it your own to fit your professional practice and to fit the unique needs of that family. Anything to add? Anything that I missed, Sarah?
I don't think miss. I think you covered that really well, Steffi. I think there's an element to it as well with the family or the teaching staff that you might work with, that at the very beginning of the process, you have a conversation and you jointly think about what particular thing you want to work on with the video. So it's not a broad just recording anything and everything. You have what we call a working point or a helping
Big
question.
You are 100% right. I completely missed that out.
Yeah, so that kind of guides the work as well. So we'll probably have a conversation with whichever adult it is, and then maybe a theme about the communication. How do we communicate well together? I want to communicate better or differently with the child, and then that will be what we really focus on when we pick out those clips that Steffi mentioned. It will be very much focused on that question. So that's the guidance element of it, in a way that we're very guided by a particular question that we're looking for.
Exactly. And I think although Sarah came up with a lovely, beautiful relationship focused helping question, that's not usually the ones that the clients come with. It's usually, I want them to listen to me, or like for TAs, I want them to do their work. I want them to stop screaming in classroom. And I think then it's about using your consultation skills as an EP. And whenever I've done, because I'm a supervisor also, whenever I've trained other EPs, I find that they have an advantage on the helping question, on coming up with the helping questions, because they've got those consultation skills. And it's about together guiding one thing that is relationship focused, but also I tend to use, and I think this is more and more becoming used in the VIG world, is getting the client to think of it from the point of view of what am I doing to make, so they feel it's a skill that they already have and they're already using, just not consistently and not all the time. So the focus becomes on them looking at the clips to figure out what they're doing, because the aim of VIG, and we'll come to it with the principles and with the values and beliefs, is to empower the client. It's really about thinking about the power balance and the power dynamic between the client and the practitioner.
Yeah, definitely. And often it's a case of we're showing them what they're already doing, as you just said. We're not prompting them to do anything within the video. What we're capturing is moments of things actually already happening, which is where that empowerment comes from, doesn't it?
And I'm sure you've had it too, as I have, where they go, but yeah, you're videoing, he's going to behave better. This is going to be better. And it's like, yes, that shows us that you have the capacity to do it. Let's just think about how to do it when you're not being videoed. Mm. And then that leads us quite nicely to the VIG values and belief, which for me are the essence, kind of, it really is. And I think they sit very well within EP practice, especially compared to other types of professions that come from the medical world. And I know that, like, other types of professions where they note that actually it's quite a shift for them in their practice to move out of the expert model, to move out of the medical model of working, where I think as EPs, we train from the beginning in the strength-based model. So I feel the values and beliefs are very in keeping with EP practice. And these are just what we feel, like how we feel we should interact with all the clients, regardless, because you will have clients coming from very, very tricky backgrounds, what feel like very hopeless situations, and keeping the values of respect, trust, hope, compassion, cooperation, I think is a really important one, because it really is about that equal turn taking and trying to create that, appreciating their background and aiming to connect and empathize with them. And the first one sounds like, yeah, of course, but actually sometimes it really is hard to take on board, and it really requires quite a lot of supervision, even once you finish peer supervision, intervision, to really believe that they are doing the best that they can. And genuinely, I do quite a bit of work in social care, and even the most disastrous, what seem like on file to be absolutely hopeless situations, the parents do, hand on heart, feel they are doing the best that they can do, and VIG finally shows them a new way of interacting, a new way of being with their child. And it's that belief that everyone has the capacity to change. They just need the guidance. They don't need the teaching. They need the guidance to do it. They need someone to come to where they are and kind of move with them. And that people have the innate desire to connect. They may not always have the skills or the same or the social communication abilities that are typical of the social world, but there's still that innate desire, there's still that motivation. So it's helping, I'm just thinking about parents or TAs who are working with children with SEN or social communication difficulties. Actually, the children still most of the time do have a innate desire to connect, but their communication style is different. And actually what VIG or VIG with professionals or VEB does is help to understand that particular child's unique communication style. And that the clients are actively involved in their change process. And that comes to the helping question that Sarah very kindly and importantly mentioned, because actually that is what drives it. We're not going in there, there are loads of video feedback interventions out there, but most of them follow a manual saying session 1, you cover this topic, session 2, you cover this. So they're a bit more like parent coaching, but this is actually, asking the parent, what do you want to change? Where do you want to bring about the change, and working with that. So they are actively involved in it. It's appreciation of the strengths, which actually sometimes people find that really difficult. They find it they sit more comfortably talking about the things they're doing wrong than appreciating their strengths. And just trying to recognize that we need to build trust. And that I think is really important, especially when you work in very complex situations where clients have had really bad experiences with working with professionals. And these beliefs, these values are a really unique way of them working with professionals. Anything to add, Sarah?
No, I think you've covered that very well, and I think that that's one of the key things that quite often we use VIG in situations that do feel quite stuck to the people that are in there, and we can shift those situations by just coming in with a different approach that's not saying try this, try that. It's just about joining together and thinking, what are you doing and what's happening? So that in itself can be quite empowering in itself to have that different approach to a problem as such.
And I find that the clients don't, or the families, I'm saying clients because we're trying to give that, it's teachers, TAs, parents, but they don't always respond well to that. I feel like there's some resistance of, you're meant to be telling me what to do. So it usually takes a couple of sessions for them to kind of realize, okay, I have the knowledge, I have the skills, you're just activating it within me. But I think that is part of the power. It's actually even if very little change has happened in a child's behavior or the relationship, the confidence of the person has usually shifted. Yeah, and that then itself has a longer term impact in how they interact and so on. So that is usually the starting place I find of VIG, is that it really creates a strong shift in the confidence of the client.
Definitely. And as you're training as well, Stephanie, that's part of the shift for you as well. And sometimes, certainly as educational psychologists, we can get put in a position of people expecting us to have answers and to have a list of things of what they can do. And sometimes it's hard within that dynamic of looking at these videos to not be, can you see and do you see it, and let them come with the things. And that's very much the part of the learning, isn't it?
And that's why I mean that's one of the things I love about VIG is the training process. I mean, as anxiety provoking as it is, having to repeatedly watch yourself and analyze yourself on video, because it is horrendous. I don't think we can say it's not. I still don't enjoy it, and I've done kind of the supervisor training. I've watched myself on video now countless times, but it is there's no learning quite like it. Seeing yourself actually do it, seeing the impact of those those few statements, those few words, that nod, there's nothing as powerful as that to help you develop.
No, and that shows the all-encompassing nature of VIG, because basically we video ourselves doing the work, and then we look back on what positive things that we've brought to it as well. So that's another way to really help the people we're working with feel comfortable with it, because they know we're videoing ourselves as well as videoing them. So it makes that connection.
And it's the nested nature of VIG. It's the actually I think I forgot to put that slide in. There's a slide which shows the nested nature, is that we're wanting to increase attunement and communication between parent and child, as well as between practitioner and parent, as well as between supervisor and practitioner. So it's kind of, there's this multi-level where the same values and beliefs, the same principles run throughout it all. And at each level you are modeling it, you're embodying it, so that it can be kind of filtered through. So yeah, that is one of the beauties of VIG. So, and I guess this is one of the, one of the kind of the VIG slides of VIG, one of the most important ones, I think, because it's just highlighting that you are creating almost a dance between two equally important people. And it's one of the hardest things to do when you are coming in as a professional, especially depending on the context. You know, if you're coming in for social care, you are sometimes coming in as the expert, even if that's not what you want. So having to shift that dynamic so that you create two equally important people, because that's what you want to model for them to create with their child, and you're creating a space for that attuned dialogues where each person is bringing their own hopes, their thoughts, their beliefs to the situation, and you're mindful of that, and all that is taking part in creating this lovely dance where hopefully you create an attuned interaction with each other. There are, sorry, that slide was in the wrong place. There are many principles, there are many theories behind VIG, and a lot of them are rooted in kind of attachment theory and parent-child. And so just for the purpose of this, I've kind of picked out the two which I think are most relevant. One is the principles of attunement, because we can't talk about VIG without talking about the principles of attunement. And we also can't do it without showing video. So these are the principles of attunement. And it's a pyramid. This, I think, is the key thing. And most of the time when parents come to us, or teachers or TAs come to us, they want to bring about change at the top of the pyramid. They want to bring about, guiding and supporting them. They want to get them to learn. They want them to get them to do their work. They want them to behave and listen. They want all that without kind of putting in the foundation of the principles of attunement, basically, of being attentive, giving time and space so as to encourage an initiative from the child. And when the child makes an initiative of something that's meaningful to them, it may be unrelated to the task at hand that the TA wants them to do. They receive that, and then slowly they create an attuned interaction, which then can take you into the place of learning, as well as can take you in the place of conflict resolution. But it allows you to have those confrontations. It allows you to scaffold and guide in an attuned manner, in a manner where you're listening to each other. And I'm going to show you a video. It's in Dutch, but that doesn't matter. It's of a Dutch nursery worker and a baby. The baby has just been dropped off at its nursery, so it's a 3-month-old baby, and it's very distressed. And I guess what Sarah and I would like you to look out for is, what principles are you seeing? And you don't necessarily have to have the principles, but what are you seeing here? Because I think from my point of view, it's one of the most touching videos, because it's really showing how in such a short time, by using the principles, by communicating within the principles of attunement, you can guide and support a child to become regulated. And it's so easily seen in a baby here, because babies, there isn't much of a placebo effect. They come kind of with what they are, kind of, it's just, it's much easier to see the impact of things, but it definitely applies. I'm sure we can all recognize what the baby's feeling when we've had our own emotional distress.
Ja, verslikken hier. Ja, toch. Verslikken hier, dat is niet fijn, hè.
Oeh, sorry. That wasn't meant to happen.
Dat is niet fijn, hè? Ja, verslikken hier. Ja, toch. Verslikken hier, dat is niet fijn, hè. Zo, nou, hij is gegaan. Dat was niet fijn, hè? Dat zijn een beetje zo.
No, don't start again. So if you can use the chat box, just to let us know what your thoughts are from seeing that video. I know you've probably seen it before, Sarah.
Yeah, it's a lovely video.
I don't know what you feel, Sarah. I feel that it's just the way she's just so attentive and so receiving. She just takes on board any of the child's emotions and feelings, and just they engage in this little conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a comment just come out from Nicole about hearing the gentle tone of voice as well. And I think that there's just that, as we always say, that bottom line, that initial foundation of attunement is being attentive. And she's got the baby quite close so they can see each other. The baby just knows physically and by sight and everything that this person is just taking total attention to them. And I think it's beautiful, and how quickly it comes down. And as just mentioned, that eye contact as well.
Yeah, we had one in the Q&A box and one in the chat box, both of them mentioning the eye contact and also the calm and gentleness. So the baby was distressed and she didn't ignore it, she didn't get wrapped up in it, she just received it but contained it.
Yes, and again, acknowledgement of distress has just come up as you said that. So people are
and sitting with the distress rather than, which I think is really difficult to do in schools when you have a child who's emotion dysregulated, and children come with a lot more kind of baggage and experiences than babies do. So I don't think it'll take a minute with a child.
Yeah, and that's a nice comment as well about mirroring the child's responses. There was that, you know, she was facial and kind of almost acknowledging them, making noises back to baby as well. And I think one of the key things around that we think about attunement, and you mentioned earlier that yes cycle and the whole idea of receiving the initiative. So baby makes a sound, the adult was making a sound back and saying, I've heard you. And there was a definite back and forth there, wasn't there?
And even though they're not speaking our language and they're not even speaking the same language, because one's speaking Babel baby and we still can see what's happening. We can still see the power, and we can see, as Sonal just put in the chat, is the turn taking, that even though it's a baby and a kind of a nursery worker, like, you know, a teacher, there's a huge power dynamic there. They still are two equally important people in the interaction.
Yeah, definitely. And again, if you sort of transpose that type of clip and think about a parent or a nursery worker that may not feel so confident about their abilities in doing that type of soothing, showing a clip like that can open up, as we've just done here, so much conversation about, well, what's happening and what are you helping baby feel, and those type of things, and that's what VIG's all about, isn't it?
And then what can you do more of at other times they're distressed? Because most of the time, you know, these people, parents, teachers, TAs are doing actually an amazing job in very difficult circumstances. They just don't realize when they're doing something that helps. And what you're doing is helping them realize when they're doing something that helps.
Yeah, and again, it's that short little moment in a mad, chaotic time.
And it is. I mean, that was a whole minute, went from a distressed baby to a quiet baby. And if anyone's had a distressed baby, I've never managed to calm my baby in that amount of time. And I think this kind of like, this ties in, you know, with pure EP practice, but it's thinking about what the child can do, but also what the client can do, what the parent, teacher, TA can do with the guidance. So it's figuring out where they're at, and you do that through the attunement principles. You do that by giving them time and space, noticing their initiatives and receiving them, so that then you can guide them within their zone of proximal development. And what VIG does is really help to get the understanding of where are they at. You know, when I've done work with parents who have children with social communication difficulties, it doesn't suddenly magically make their child start talking, but what it does is it helps their parent understand that child's communication style, so that they can work within that child's zone of proximal development, rather than, you know, lowering the expectations or having too high expectations. And that's one of the things that I think is the beauty of VIG, is that it really does help to understand that zone of proximal development for that child, and in our case, for the people that we're working with, the parents, TAs.
Yeah, it's nested again, isn't it, Steffi? It's not just about the individual and the child's zone, it's about everybody's, and how that ripples out, even ours as part of the work with the child and adult too.
And although this has some basis in neurology, we're not getting into that now, and this is kind of more theory based, there's no kind of evidence behind this, but one of the things that we're thinking that makes VIG so effective is that when you feel criticized, when you feel judged, you kind of stop learning, your defenses come up, you maybe want to attack the other person, you get hopeless and helpless, and that's often happens, you know, if you think of parents stuck in the social care system, social workers kind of can be quite judgmental because they have to, that's their role, so there's that, put your defenses up. And what we're feeling is that in VIG, we switch off that threat system, because by focusing on the positive, by helping them to develop helping them realize the things that they're doing well and the moments that are being successful, we're allowing them to kind of open themselves up to new learning experiences. And what we're hoping then to do is, once we've done that for the parent or the teacher or the TA, is helping them to do that for the children that they're working with. It's helping them to kind of reduce their threat system to be able to open themselves up to new learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I'm just conscious of time. So what do you think would be a best use of time? Because we've got a couple of questions, and I found...
Yeah, I think we've got one question, and I think what we were thinking about doing as well, Steffi, is maybe mentioning a couple of bits of work we have been involved with. I think that's going to sort of cover the question that's in the box at the moment, and I know Nicole's just put a prompt out if anyone else has got any questions. So do you got some slides of the work that you've done?
I will just talk about one of the pieces, and it's actually in the VERP book that I think Nicole already posted the links to. Yeah. And it's basically, and I think why I want to talk about this one more than any of them is because it's got a real application to EP practice. I did it a few times with TAs who are working with children with autism, non-verbal autism. And at a similar time, I had done the CERT training, which is another training I feel is absolutely fantastic. It's the social communication, emotion regulation, transactional support system. And it's basically a framework for working with children with autism and focusing on the interaction with them. And actually, they break down the interactional style into lots of little steps, which map on really nicely to the principles of attunement. So how I did this with this TA was, I did it more in a VIG with professionals type format, in that we set some targets, which were the helping questions. And then I did the first cycle. So I videoed, I took it away, and I mapped it on because she was a TA, I did it in a professional capacity where I kind of used the principles and the sets quite explicitly. And we kind of worked on that, and she came up with a couple of strengths as well as things she wants to trial more. The next 2 cycles, she did the videoing. She picked out the clips of things she was happy with. She analyzed all her footage, came back having analyzed the footage using the VIC principles and the SERTS framework to help her think about how to interact with this particular child more. And actually, the post-intervention evaluation was really positive in that his challenging, because he was nonverbal, his challenging behavior had significantly decreased and his task engagement had significantly increased. And I don't think that was anyone waving a magic wand. I just think she had developed such a strong understanding of him that she wouldn't have without the use of VIG.
Definitely. And again, Steffi, it shows how VIG is almost a kind of a catalyst for other things, or a way to explore other things. So you've got VIG, or in this case, VERT, which is video enhanced reflective practice, and SCIRTS coming together. So you could use a variety of other programs or ideas, but the VIG or VERP is there to be able to show what is happening within that space, isn't it?
I think that's why I chose this bit of it, because I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of VIG, is that you're taught the skills, you're given the tools, and then it's here you go, adapt it how you feel, as long as you remain true to the values and beliefs and the principles of attunement. I think those are basically the main criteria for saying that you're doing VIG.
Yeah,
That's kind of the, and that you're using video, obviously.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Did you want to unshare your screen and then
Yeah,
we
good
can
idea.
look at the questions? And I'm thinking as well, Steffi, I know given the circumstances at the moment as well, and the kind of almost parallels with using video to explore these things, I know you've been working on using VIG remotely as well, haven't you? So, and I think that would be interesting.
Some colleagues have really taken off with it. Sadly, I had 2 potential cases, but one, the mom is still trying to get the tech involved. They're both quite significant social care cases. So sadly, the tech is hindering and acting as a disadvantage. But what some people are using it really successfully, using Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where they basically record the interaction through their screen. So by recording what's going on the screen, and then they just use share screen to do the shared review. And I mean, yeah, it's probably not as, I mean, interesting to find out if it is as powerful. I mean, we don't know. That's the reality, but it's definitely something that can be used despite the current.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I haven't had the opportunity like you to use it yet, but I'm very sort of taken about how you can use that shared thing. We talk about the triangle, don't we? So it's the guider, the adult, and the laptop or the computer showing the video, that we all spend time sort of looking at those 3 things. And I could see how that would work on Zoom. You've still got that space to share and view something together, haven't you?
We have. And there's a really interesting question here, which I haven't actually thought about. I think it's about how to use VIG to help adults support children transitioning into education settings.
I did one piece of work quite soon after I moved up to work into Southend, where I did some work with a family at home over the summer holiday when the child was transitioning into school from preschool. And I then did some work once the child was in school to build a relationship with a learning support assistant. And then we all came together to share different aspects of the videos. And that worked really, really well. And we were able to kind of see different strengths that came from family and from school. So that was a lovely piece of work to
and
be
then
involved.
It also helps to create the secure base within the school. Helps because if you're going to strengthen an attachment, if you're going to create that secure attachment, that positive communication, attuned communication, then you're creating a secure base for the child.
Exactly. And there was a bridge for them as well, because I'd done the work with them, with their family at home, and then I did the same work at school, and we shared photos with the child. So it was a familiar activity for them as well, or I was a familiar person doing a familiar task, and it did work beautifully. Really, really nice piece of work. Yeah. And I think that there's work, and there's certainly work as well in the video interaction book, where they talk about using video feedback as social stories and things like that, don't they? So there's lots of element of using video and VIG in different ways to support that transition. Maybe have I don't know, I'm thinking at the moment it's harder because we're having to work remotely, but there may be a time where we can think about a child visiting a school and a video being taken of them sitting in the class and talking to the new teacher, and then
all in a very strength positive way. So use the video editing to do kind of video feed forward, where it's kind of then you're clipping it to help it be like a very strength based way.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of options to, again, be innovative with the VIG ideas. The attunement principles are there, that you might just be using the video in a slightly different way.
And then somebody put a very practical question of what training do you need to get started? So there's been actually quite a lot of new changes in the VIG world. So the training has been streamlined and potentially made a bit shorter than I think both when Sarah and I trained. So first there is a 2-day initial training course, also called the ITC. And they are still being done online. There are quite a few people still doing them online, and they've found them to be very successful online. It's a very interactive workshop style training course, and you can find all the ones that are listed internationally are all on the VIG website. Following that, you have supervision. So just because you've done the ITC doesn't mean you can go away and start doing you can go away and do video feedback interventions, but to be able to use VIG, that's accredited by the AVIG UK, you have to do, it's a minimum of 16 hours of supervision with a minimum of 6 cases, I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Midway through the training, you have a midpoint review, which is a really just a nice way where you share your work with another supervisor and think about your strengths and next steps. You also have kind of a group supervision with other people who are doing the midpoint review on the same day. And then you have the final accreditation. And then if you want, you can go on to be an advanced practitioner and then on to being a supervisor.
Yeah, definitely.
And throughout it all, you're videoing yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, and with through that is part of the videoing yourself, and you carry on doing the videoing yourself as an accredited practitioner. And you know, as the training goes, you go through the attunement principles yourself. So again, you're looking at how you use those to work with the families and schools. So it's a lovely training to do, really, because it's very practical. You're doing the work with families, but you're also having that safety of the supervision to really look at how you're developing your skills. So that's lovely. I'm aware we've just gone over time, and I don't think there's any more questions there, but I would really like you to thank you so much for coming along this afternoon, Stephanie, and sharing the thoughts. It's been really nice to discuss. I think we both love VIG, so it's been really nice to have a chat about it, really.
It is. It's always lovely to chat about VIG.
So I'd like to wish everyone a lovely weekend, and I hope you will have a relaxing time, and hopefully we'll see Stephanie again sometime soon.
Lovely.
Take care.
Have a nice weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.